So Representative Sanford, you and I talked months before the legislative session started about your concerns about religious freedom.
Right.
And feedback that you were getting from people of faith and church leaders. That's really when this discussion started. So here we are on the opposite side of that, seeing so much during 5 or 6 months. We just want you to know that we're proud of you for the work you're doing and the leadership that you have shown. But from your perspective, talk to us a little bit about how difficult it is to get a piece of legislation passed in the Texas House and the Senate in our legislature, even in a state like Texas, on these issues. And talk to us a little bit about why this issue means so much to you.
It certainly was an interesting journey to get this bill passed, and you gave me a compliment earlier, and I've got to shed some light and some truth on that. Something like this doesn't happen easily. It certainly doesn't happen with just one person. There's so many people that are involved in it, if I may mention a few of those that help make this possible. So we started off with, obviously we're friends with Jonathan, and we had I remember during an interim time in Austin on the steps of the Capitol having a conversation about, hey, do we need to do anything for pastors in this next legislative session? And at that time, the answer was, no, we think we're good. And 6 months later, Jonathan came to me and said, no, I think maybe we need to do something. And the ball began to roll. And things began to take shape, and it was much like being on a mission trip. If you've ever been on a mission trip overseas and you see things just begin to happen that you can't explain, God doing things that you can't take credit for. I felt that way much of the time through this process, that God put people in place, people like Jonathan, Texas Values Action, and others, that God was doing things, and I just happened to be along for the ride. I have to just let you know that Texas Values and Texas Values Action do great work. They were with us the entire way. Many midnight conversations, early morning meetings on the issue. Liberty Institute has both dedicated people as well as very intelligent people to help as well. The Concerned Women of America, boy, they did the legwork, the prayer work, and the work of encouragement. We love them to death and are so grateful for them. And then Pastor Welch is here and he's representing the Texas Pastors Council. Friends, this thing would not have happened if it weren't for the pastors showing up in Austin in droves by his invitation and by the invitation of many other organizations. They made such a showing that the next day the Speaker of the House said, I heard y'all had a lot of people in the committee room last night. I said, yes, we did. And there are so many others. I have to mention my wife, Shelley Sanford, who I'll be married to 28 years this week. We're going to dinner tomorrow night of our anniversary. It's an even number of years, so she's paying. And then right behind her is our Chief of Staff, Catherine Manal, who was so instrumental in seeing this through, and our District Director, Megan Pulley, that we're so grateful for. And there are many others that I'm overlooking. I've got it. Matt Krause left, who led us in the pledges. Just a man of character. He's my desk mate. Was always encouraging along the way. For the committee chairman who made it, was sure that this was possible. And you had to have the lieutenant governor come along and resuscitate this bill. This bill had run out of time in the House. And with Senator Estes and the lieutenant governor at Jonathan's behest said, hey, let's get this thing moving in the Senate. And they did it. We're so grateful for them and give them a gold star for that effort. I know I'm leaving out many others. Representative Shaheen is here, I think. Matt, are you still here? There he is back here. And was always an encourager, always asking about the progress of this bill. And two of our county commissioners who you might not think were involved in this, they were on top of this bill. And they were always asking, always encouraging, all of them were, but two of them are here tonight. Susan Fletcher, are you here? There she is in the middle, always an encourager. And Chris Hill, are you here too? Back here. They were always praying for us and encouraging us. But it was an exhausting process, an invigorating process, and we look forward to working with Texas Values and Liberty Institute in moving the ball further down the field in the issue of religious liberties, not just for Texas, but for the rest of the nation. And Texas is leading the way. Thanks no small measure to some of those that and more that I've mentioned already.
Well, and one of the turning points, I think we'll all agree, was that afternoon and that day when over 100 pastors descended on the Texas Capitol. And there was a leader in that room as well, our Attorney General, Ken Paxton, who is a strong leader on the issue of religious freedom and marriage, and he was very concerned about this issue and wanted to show his support. So we had all the pastors come in and we discussed this, and then our own Attorney General came into the room and got to see the most pastors I've ever seen come to the Capitol in one day. Boy, it was quite overwhelming. And for him to have held this seat in the House and then to have you there as a pastor, now you're in this seat, wow, it all seemed to just be God's plan fitting together. Did it feel like that to you?
Oh, absolutely. It was like just being along for the ride and seeing God do things, bring people along to support this issue, even those you wouldn't expect. That God just does things like that at times. By the way, speaking of God, if I can, services are here every Sunday at 9:30 and 11 o'clock.
Kelly Shockford, is it okay if he talks about God up here? I just wanted to, okay, I'm just checking. Amen. Well, and it's interesting because so many times there was time where we took for prayer. You and I and your staff and others, pastors, and not just pastors. I mean, as we talked about, this event, this law is not just about pastors. But the reason why that was so important is because what I have felt all along, and I think you brought to my attention, was that if the pastors feel like they're protected, they can lead more people when they stand up from the pulpit and take their stand when they've got protection in law, than to encourage other people to do the same for their religious freedom rights. Would you agree?
Absolutely. The chairman of the committee that initially passed this out of the House said, Scott, we have a lot of problems in our country, and we're not going to fix them in the legislature. If we're going to fix these issues, it's going to be from the pulpits, and we have to protect the pulpits to do their jobs and to help fix things here. And so he said, I want to put wings on this bill and make it fly, and he helped do that. But absolutely, I would agree with that.
Well, and also the House Republican Caucus Chairman Tan Parker made it a priority as well. His district is not too far from here. He was not able to be here tonight, but I know something that was very concerned about. It's interesting too, because when we talk about this bill, we talk about Representative Sanford being an executive pastor himself and having that ability to understand how important this issue is. So thank you again for spending time with us, and we look forward to visiting with you at the end of the program for a very special announcement.